Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, this is some humble obeisances of the Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be discussing from Canto 1, Chapter 9, verse 41. And the chapter is entitled The Passing of Bhishma Dev in the Presence of Lord Krishna. And the class will be given by His Grace Prabhu from ISKCON Harrisburg. And without further delay, we'll start right into class. And it's all yours. Hari Hari Bol.
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Vivadadari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Vivadadari Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Vivadadari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Vivadadari Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Damodara Radha, Damodara Kiyade. Jaya Radha, Shamakunda Radha, Shamakunda Kiyade. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Gauranikai, Gauranikai, Jaya Gauranikai, Jaya Gauranikai, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Jagat Guru, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Jagat Guru, Srila Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora, Haribo, Nitai Gora, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora, Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Privajikacharya Stotra Sata Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Privajikacharya Stotra Sata Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananti Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Charge Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Shikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mathura Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Hitai Gaur Premanande, Haribo. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga Shri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tera Swami Nityananda. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Suttam Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tera. Narayana Namaste Naron Chaivam Narotamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashta Prayeswa Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavata Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So this morning's text is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Passing of Grandfather Bhishma in the presence of Lord Sri Krishna. Text 41. Muni Gana Nepabaya Sankulenta Sadasi Yudhishthir Rajasuya Esham Aharnam Upa Deda Ikshaniyo Mama Drishi Gochar Ise Ishavir Atma Muni Gana Nipa Varya Sankulenta Sadasi Yudhishthira Jasuyesham Ahanam Upapeda Ikshaniyo Mama Drishi Gochar Ishavir Atma Muni Gana Nipa Varya Sankulenta Sadasi Yudhishthira Jasuyesham Harnam upapeda ikshaniyo. Mama drishi gocharisa vir atma. Hare Krishna. You can chant if you want.
Muni Gana Nripa Varya Sankul Ninta Tadashi Yudhisthir Rajusuya Esham Arhanamu Papeda Ikshaniyo Mama Drishi Gochara Esha Aviratma.
Got it. Anyone else?
Muni Gana Nripa Varya Sankule Nintaha Sarasi Yudhisthir Rajasuya Esham Arhanam Upapera Ikshaniyo Mama Drishi Gochara Esha Aviratma.
Okay.
Muni Gana Rupa Varya Sankule Netaha Satasi Yudhishthir Rachasuya Esham Arhanam Upapeta Rushaniyo Mama Trushi Kochar Esha Aviratma. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay, so word for word. Munigana, the great learned sages. Nirpavarya, the great ruling kings. Sankule, in the great assembly of. Anta Sadasi, conference. Yudhishthir, of Emperor Yudhishthir. Raja Shuye, a royal performance of sacrifice. Esham, of all the great elites. Ahanam, respectful worship. Upapeda, received. Ikshaniya, the object of attraction. Mama, my. Rishi, sight. Gochara, within the view of. Esha Avi, personally present. Atma, the soul. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. At the Rajashriya Yagya sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthira, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal and learned orders, and in that great assembly, Lord Sri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remembered the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. After gaining victory in the battle of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhishthira, the emperor of the world, performed the Rajasuya sacrificial ceremony. The emperor in those days, upon his ascendance to the throne, would send a challenge horse all over the world to declare his supremacy. And any ruling prince or king was at liberty to accept the challenge and express his tacit willingness either to obey or to disobey the supremacy of the particular emperor. So one who accepted the challenge had to fight with the emperor and establish his own supremacy by victory. The defeated king will have to sacrifice his life, making a place for another king or ruler. So Maharaj Yudhishthira also dispatched such challenging horses all over the world, and every ruling prince and king all over the world accepted Maharaj Yudhishthira's leadership as emperor of the world. After this, all rulers of the world under the regime of Maharaj Yudhishthira were invited to participate in the great sacrificial ceremony of Rajasuya. Such performances requires hundreds of millions of dollars, and it was not an easy job for a petty king. Such a sacrificial ceremony being too expensive and also difficult to perform under present circumstances is now impossible in this age of Kali. Nor can anyone secure the required expert priesthood to take charge of the ceremony. So after being invited, all the kings and great learned sages of the world assembled in the capital of Maharaj Yudhishthira. The learned society, including the great philosophers, religionists, physicians, scientists, and all great sages, was invited. That is to say, the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas were the topmost leading men in society, and they were all invited to participate in the assembly. Vaishyas and Shudras were unimportant elements in society, and they are not mentioned herein. Due to the change of social activities in the modern age, the importance of men has also changed in terms of occupational positions. So in that great assembly, Lord Krishna was the cynosure of neighboring eyes. Everyone wanted to see Lord Krishna, and everyone wanted to pay his humble respects to the Lord. Bhishma Dev remembered all this and was glad that his worshipful Lord, the personality of Godhead, was present before him in his actual formal presence. So to meditate on the Supreme Lord is to meditate on the activities, form, pastimes, name, and fame of the Lord. That is easier than what is imagined as meditation on the impersonal feature of the Supreme. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, text 5, it is clearly stated that to meditate upon the impersonal feature of the Supreme is very difficult. It is practically no meditation or simply a waste of time because very seldom is the desired result obtained. The devotees, however, meditate upon the Lord's factual form and pastimes, and therefore the Lord is easily approachable by the devotees. That this is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, text 9. The Lord is none different from his transcendental activities. It is also indicated in this shloka that Lord Sri Krishna, while actually present before human society, especially in connection with the Battle of Kurukshetra, was accepted as the greatest personality of all time, although he might not have been recognized as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The propaganda that a very great man is worshipped as God after his death is misleading, because a man after his death cannot be made into God, nor can the personality of Godhead be a human being even when he is personally present. Both ideas are misconceptions. The idea of anthropomorphism cannot be applicable in the case of Lord Krishna. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyana Gyana Shalakaya Chakshu Omilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Vayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Vita Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaisnavam Scha Sri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Para Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhescha Kripa Sinibhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sidvaita Gadadhar Shivachari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshitarini. Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Padayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Guhatishe Namaha Nanda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Imagya Divachak Sundaraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. So we'll do the English translation again. And that is, At the Rajasuya sacrifice, the Rajasuya Yagya sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthira, there was a great assembly of all the elite men of the world and the royal and learned orders. And in that great assembly, Lord Krishna, Sri Krishna, was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remembered the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. Hare Krishna. So this is teaching us quite a number of things. Quite a number of things, actually. Because in this case, this is Maharaj, Bhishma Dev speaking. He was recounting the things that happened after Maharaj Yudhishthira had been crowned king. Many important personalities were invited to the Rajasuya Yagya. He himself, that is, Bhishma Dev, was there. And Bhishma Dev is bringing us one important point. He's bringing to our attention the greatness of Lord Sri Krishna. These are an assembly of the most important and highly regarded people on the planet, and others too that came, because the demigods sometimes they come in situations like that on their own accord. They may worship, but they may come to a function that's most important. It's been explained that in the best yuga of the four yugas, Satya Yuga, that the demigods used to come and they were visible. Sacrifices, when they performed, sometimes they came for their share, one that's given to them. And Kali Yuga, you don't see them because spirituality has gotten so compromised by the majority of people, overwhelming majority of people on the planet. Therefore, the demigods don't care to come to such events or such things that are held here, because the connection with Krishna consciousness is not there in the minds and in the hearts of the overwhelming majority of the population of the earth at this point. So that puts us in a different category. Those of us that are trying to be, devotees, even conditioned souls that are trying to take the path of bhakti seriously. We are supposed to be humble. That is one of the ways, very important things that Krishna teaches us in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, text 8. What Krishna declares as knowledge, the first thing he talks about is amanita, humility. So devotees are supposed to be humble. Devotees are supposed to be humble in the sense that in the qualities that come with humility. One of them is being aware that how we treat devotees would very much be a measure of the success or failure of our spiritual life, how we treat devotees. So we have to be careful in treating devotees. Also, Krishna consciousness, the aim is to love Krishna Prema, to come to Krishna Prema platform. But to come to Krishna Prema platform, you have to learn to love devotees first. Because devotees are the ones that are with us, devotees are the ones that we have sangha with, we have association with. So if we learn to love devotees first, then that is our practice towards getting to the final aim, which is Krishna Prema. Bhishma in his life showed great love in all circumstances. He was just, he was considerate, he put his own needs last and everybody else's needs first. He dealt with situations as best he could, even the situations when the politics got really bad in Hastinapur with Duryodhana, and the members of his family trying to go against the Pandavas, it worried Bhishma Dev, and he tried very hard to deal with the situation, also with the help of Vidura. But at no point did Bhishma Dev actually hate Duryodhana. He hated the activities of Duryodhana because he was trying, and him and his father were trying to sabotage the Pandavas. Now that tells us that the person has in their heart the soul and super soul. Now, because the super soul is in the heart, the soul actually is in the heart, the activities sometimes may not be so good. But we have to deal with the activities and keep ourselves from hating the person. In other words, there should be a separation of person and activities. Somebody has done something bad. That activity is bad, and that activity has to be dealt with. So there should be the mindset of trying to correct that person, either by ourselves or by a person in authority that is empowered to do that. But to just write the person off totally, as they say in America, you throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you learn to deal with the situation, to bring it to understanding and to bring it to a point where you can forgive, then the relationship is not damaged and it can go on. But when the relationship is damaged, then it becomes a group of two in your life. Those that you like, those that you don't like. Those that you like, those that you hate. And every time you think about, or we think, and it happens to everybody, it happens to a lot of people. You think about somebody that you don't like, then you don't project good energy towards them. You cannot learn to love Krishna unless we are either loving devotees deeply, or at least be on good terms with them if you don't even have a great relationship with them. The other thing also is to look at the good side, because everybody has higher nature and lower nature. Meditate more on the higher nature or the good side of the person, and not so much on the lower nature. Lower nature, over time, it will go away. Over time, if you help, it will go away. We all can help each other to grow. This is called purification. Maharaj Yudhishthira was a great example of a very balanced person, and so was Bhishma. So the Rajasuya Yagya was performed by Maharaj Yudhishthira, and obviously this is Krishna is the cause of all causes, as Lord Brahma says. So this was Krishna's plan to ultimately get people who were in the mode of goodness and were devotees in the mode of transcendence to be the ones running affairs. So Maharaj Yudhishthira was going to be king because Krishna wanted it that way. So in the Rajasuya sacrifice, the great assembly of all the elite men of the world, learned men in science, in the arts, and also sages, they were all there, and Krishna is the topmost. Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. As a matter of fact, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada describes Krishna as a cynosure. Cynosure means the person who is the center of attraction. And Krishna is always the center of attraction for the gopis. And in this case too, Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing the point. So Bhishma is teaching us that the things that we have connected ourselves to in Krishna consciousness, the activities, it should be playing in our minds, because that reminds us of Krishna consciousness, the activity itself, and it also reminds us of Krishna. One of the easy ways when we're chanting, even if our mind strays a little bit, but it strays to an activity by devotees, or it strays to a pastime of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because Krishna is absolute. So even if our mind strays to that, we are still connected with Krishna. Because Krishna's and Krishna's activities, Krishna's paraphernalia are all Krishna. We can't say that. We can't be like that, but Krishna can be like that. So we can even protect our minds by thinking about Guru, thinking about Krishna, because Guru is representative of Krishna. Krishna consciousness activities, pastimes, the deeds, all of those can ring one picture after another in our minds while we chant the holy name of our Lord. And that doesn't represent a distraction at all, because it's all connected with Krishna. So we can think of Krishna or activities connected with Krishna. That way we think about Krishna all of the time. So Bhishma Dev is recounting this particular one, remembering the Rajasuya sacrifice, the activities there, and remembering Krishna at that time, who was worshipped as the most exalted personality. And he said, I remembered this incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. So that's the lesson that we learn. Remembering Krishna's pastimes so that we can remember Krishna. We can serve Krishna devotionally in love, but we can also remember Krishna's pastimes. Both of them help us to keep our minds on Krishna. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that Maharaj Yudhishthira performed the Rajasuya sacrifice after being made the emperor of the world. And then he described the Rajasuya sacrifice. There is a horse that's taken from one, and with an army also, Maharaj Yudhishthira's army. And they go to different parts, different nations, and it's announced to the king that if you accept Maharaj Yudhishthira as the emperor, then they go on. There's no fight. And if the particular person who's going to, the king was going to go against it, then there'll have to be a fight between that king and Maharaj Yudhishthira's army. In fact, Maharaj Yudhishthira has to take part too. These days, the generals hide in some room somewhere or in a bunker somewhere when the wars are going on, and the poor soldiers are in the battlefront and they get killed along with civilians. Such degradation in Kali Yuga. So Maharaj Yudhishthira, so Prabhupada spent some time talking about how expensive it is to put this type of Rajasuya sacrifice together. It requires hundreds of millions of dollars. Brought it to the American currency so that we can understand how much money goes into this. A lot of gold and other precious metals, and people called in, and so much that in the accommodations, and so much that has to be done for all the kings that are coming, all the sages that are coming. And Kali Yuga is not done anymore. So Brahmins and Kshatriyas were invited. Srila Prabhupada to make the distinction. Vaishyas and Shudras, by the way, Brahmanas, mode of goodness, Kshatriyas, mode of passion, Vaishyas, mixed passion, ignorance, Shudras, in ignorance. So mixed passion and ignorance folks were not mentioned here. Srila Prabhupada says they're not mentioned because they're unimportant elements in the society. We're talking about a sacrifice that is very, 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 very significant. And that's why the Bhagavatam mentions the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas and scientists and the learned people who came to that particular one. Very important activity. Now, Srila Prabhupada makes an important point. Due to the change of social activities in the modern age, the importance of men has also changed in terms of occupational positions. We do not have great brahmanas like we used to. As a matter of fact, in sacrifices, brahmanas were invited, they would chant mantras, and even to light the fire for the sacrificial fire was done by mantras. These days, we don't have brahmanas that can chant mantras for fire to light up. automatically. We have to use regular match to light the fire. So that gets to show you that the potency of the brahmanas has actually been decreased quite a bit. But in this society, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, our concern is not so much to be the greatest brahmana in the world. Our concern is to spread Krishna consciousness. So yesterday in the Bhakti Vriksha class, we're talking about the main aim is for a devotee to remember Krishna by chanting the holy name and also try to induce others to do the same. So this is a Brahminical activity now. To obey the regulated principles, Krishna says that we should serve him with love. And if we don't know how to love him, then we can go by the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, what we've been told by the spiritual master to do. Chant the prescribed number of rounds, obey the regulated principles, and be associating with devotees who are also doing the same so that you can be in the atmosphere where that is done. And so that protects then your devotional keeper. This is what is best for us to be involved in. Every time that we think about Krishna, it goes into our spiritual bank account as a positive. Thinking about Krishna would mean that we have to do things that's attractive to devotees in Krishna consciousness. And so many services that are available, we have to do to the best of our ability and do from our hearts. That is real devotional service. The devotional part of it has to come from our hearts. And the more we serve because we want to serve and we feel happy to serve, then the more Krishna will make Krishna consciousness sweeter for us. And it gets to a point where now things that are bothersome for the body and so on, or situations that happen, it will have our attention, but a very minimal time of attention we put into that. And we can easily get over it and keep going. Accepting, as Maharaj Rishabhadev says in Bhagavatam, in Canto 5, Chapter 5, accept things that happen. Happiness and distress, they're like the seasons. They come, they go. What do we deal with seasons? The winter is coming. We prepare ourselves. We don't say, oh, why is it that there shouldn't be winter? We prepare ourselves, and then we deal with it. And every day, the way it is, we adjust, and then we do what's necessary, and it comes, and it also is gone. And then better weather comes, and then we adjust ourselves accordingly. This is the way that we're taught to deal with happiness and distress in the material world. Material happiness is not important. Material distress, certainly we don't want it because the soul likes pleasure anyway, bliss. But material distress shouldn't be taken too seriously. First of all, everything that starts has an end. So it will come, it will go. Second, this is a place that is a reformatory. We don't really belong here. We're only here for a short while and we'll be gone. And so these are the kinds of instructions that we tell the mind. It's called Manashiksha. You tell the mind that these things aren't as important. We shouldn't give so much of our hearts to it, deal with it, and then keep going. But what we should give our hearts to is chanting the holy name of the Lord and hearing. And chanting with very, very, very serious attention, as much attention as we can give. Many of us, if not all of us, have been to school. And we want to do well with our subjects. So when we go to school and a class is on, what do? We pay great attention to what the teacher is saying. When there's somebody next to us that is not paying attention and being a disturbance, we get upset with them because they are disturbing our ability to hear. How much effort we put in to try to pay attention. And that is to get a material qualification in order to live life to satisfy the material body so that in the end, the material body would leave us anyway. Look how much seriousness we put into school and the work that we need to do. when it comes to chanting, that is going to take us back to Godhead, to be in a situation where we never die, we have all knowledge, and all activities are the happiest activities we can ever hope for. What to do? We have to chant. Now, if in school to get a degree, which is going to be temporary, we pay so much attention to, then why should we pay the greater attention to that which in fact gives us everlasting, beautiful, wonderful life? The chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Again, this argument should be ringing in our minds. The best thing for me is, in fact, the transcendental activity, not the material activity. The material activity is only necessary. That's what we talk about at school, to be there, to study, to have a particular qualification, a particular profession, expertise in it, so that you can go on. That is for a temporary situation, because we're going to die. And so it seems that, and it should be, I would say it seems that by the tongue in cheek, but it seems, rather than it seems, I would say the real reason that we should chant and chant seriously is because our permanent life, not the temporary, permanent life depends on that. The life of the soul, getting back to Godhead. And the leaving, Bhishma is leaving his body. He wanted to leave, he could leave anytime he wanted to. He chose to leave when the personality of Godhead was there. A very big lesson for us to learn also. When we're leaving, and we don't know when we leave, right? So for us, at any time, we can leave. Srila Prabhupada said, Maharaj Pariksit was told that he would die in 7 days. So he knew when he was going to leave and he prepared himself. We don't know whether in the next 7 minutes we'll be gone. And it does happen. Accidents happen all of a sudden, boom. If you're in Ukraine at this point, some bomb can hit you, and at any time it happen. As a matter of fact, there was one thing that I saw. A woman, a mother with 2 children, they were trying to run across the street, and then unfortunately one of the bombs arrived there, and that was the end of them. In the instant, all 3 of them were corpses. In the material world, anything can happen at any time. So we should always be remembering, just like Bhishma said, remember all this, remember all the things that are connected with Krishna consciousness, even the things that we took part in. So sometimes when we have activities and some of the devotees take pictures and they post it, it's nice to see ourselves in it. We see other of our friends in it, but underneath the higher message is everybody was doing something in Bhakti Yoga. That is actually the important part to remember. We may be happy to see ourselves in videos, maybe happy to see ourselves in pictures, but what were we doing? We were associating and serving the Lord at the same time. That is the part. Associating and serving the Lord according to Guru's instructions. Doing some things, if you did it outside, then it means just like this past weekend, then it means that others also heard the holy name. When we do it inside in the temple, we serve to what? Reinforce our Krishna consciousness, because we are doing the things that we have been told to do, and we are happy to do it. Singing, dancing, and kirtan, and chanting the holy name of the Lord. That, it makes us happy. That keeps us in Krishna consciousness. And that also is just a little smidgen, a small indication of the great party in the spiritual world. That's done with great facility, and also our souls and the Lord. There's no disease, there's nothing like that disturbing us, no bad weather, wonderful activity. Everything there is magnificent in all of the spiritual planets. And we're fortunate to even have a chance now to go to Goloka Vrindavan, the topmost, the farthermost, and the topmost, where the relationship with Krishna is in great variety. all the other Vaikuntha planets, Krishna is worshipped as King Narayan in awe and reverence, but in the spiritual world, that one particular planet, Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna is worshipped as the center of attraction. And the relationships are different types of relationships. There's lots of relationships. The main five ones, the main five are the ones that are described to us, but there's more. And everybody has their own custom type relationship with Krishna also, even within the major types of rasas or relationships that are there. So Krishna's attention to all of us, the center of attraction, and the attractiveness that we feel for Krishna is such that, like Sri Prabhupada described as, say you're a friend of Krishna. Krishna will be the best friend. You can't have a friend better than Krishna. And the friendship sometimes here in the material world, something happens and there's disagreement, and for a while, a person that's a friend, they kind of not close to you anymore. Maybe you make it up later on. With Krishna, the relationship is wonderful and it stays wonderful the whole time. And there's far more variety within the relationship, and not just friendship. There's a parental, there's a madhurya, ras, conjugal. There is servant relationship, there's neutrality, and all of that is there to give so much variety. So we really, we've forgotten how it's like in the spiritual world, because if we really remembered, we would say we're missing out terribly. But by Guru's grace, after a while, in spiritual world time, it won't take that long for us to get a chance to go back. And by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we have actually a chance to go back to Goloka Vrindavan. So coming back to purport, Srila Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, text 5, chapter 12 is called Devotional Service. It's clearly stated that to meditate upon the impersonal feature of the Supreme is very difficult. Well, so that also tells us, and hidden in this particular statement is the fact that Srila Prabhupada has made it easy for us because we do not meditate on the impersonal feature. We don't meditate on the rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our sadhana, the learning process, is all direct relationship with the deity, by serving the deity, singing to the deity, and we have the Lord represented by a spiritual master that guides us. So everything is on a personal level, not an impersonal level. So devotees don't even have to worry about, we may learn about the impersonal feature, but it's actually not even part of our lives at all. So as Srila Prabhupada says, we meditate on the Lord's factual forms and his pastimes. And therefore the Lord is easily approachable that way. So as devotees, even when we're not at the point where we're pure, still, by the mercy of the pure devotees, we are able to connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the activities that we have been instructed to do. And over time, getting used to doing those services, then we're going to obviously have the habit. Now time comes to this time we do this, this time we do this, and we just do and work together. And then we have our kirtan in the end, and then we have prasadam. So it always ends wonderfully, the programs, that is. And so we are in a situation where I don't know whether people realize how fortunate we are. Because this life, outside of Krishna consciousness, how sweet is it? It's only the Krishna consciousness activities that brings love, that connects the bodies together, and make us really enjoy ourselves. So we enjoy ourselves in service. When we're chanting the Lord's name in kirtan, we're happy, we're singing, we're dancing, but we're also saying, dear Lord, dear Radha, dear Krishna, please engage us in devotional service to you. We're singing it, the Hare Krishna mantra. And so with that, that floods our minds with it over and over and over and over again. then doing activities for the Lord or hearing about the Lord and hearing about the Lord's pastimes will over time become second nature to us. And the more we get into it, the less the Maya has an effect on us. So that the things that happen that may be a little troublesome, they come, they go, and they do go. And they come, but they do go. And then we can hope for the final situation where leaving the body, we'll be thinking about Krishna, just like Bhishma was thinking about Krishna. Krishna gave him even wonderful situation of being present himself. So Krishna can talk, so Bhishma can talk about pastimes that he remembers to connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And with him speaking that way, that means everybody that was listening was also remembering. So Bhishma was making people remember even the Rajasuya Yagya, the sacrifice, and how wonderful that was. You were there, he says you were there, you were the center of attraction, and as it should be, and now you're here also to be there for me as I leave my body. Bhishma Dev was describing that way. So what's the important point that we should pick up from this? Krishna may not be personally present when we leave our bodies, but Krishna's devotees can be there to help us remember Krishna. Krishna, now I'm going to change it and say Krishna will be there when we're leaving our bodies. Why? Because he'll be there in his holy name. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is Krishna, because Krishna is absolute. So you may not see Hare Krishna, we may see Krishna the way Bhishma saw Krishna, but we perceive Krishna through the senses by chanting the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So the point we're making is our connection to Krishna is very much through the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So everybody should chant with great seriousness. Just like we're talking about, the attention should be better than even the attention when you're in the classroom trying to get a degree or graduate. Hare Krishna. So we'll stop here and I'll read the text again. So Bhishma was saying that at the Rajasuya Yagya, the sacrifice, that was performed by Maharaj Yudhishthira, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, royal and learned orders. And in that great assembly, then Bhishma says, Lord Krishna was worshipped by one and all. So he's the topmost. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. This happened during my presence. He was there, and I remember the incident in order to keep my mind on the Lord. So what we pick from this is one pastime after another. Let it ring through our minds. Let us hear about the pastimes, because the pastimes of the Lord are wonderful from when he was the baby to when he was grown, when he left, and what's going on now, and what other devotees are talking about in Srimad Bhagavatam. To excite us and we keep our minds on the Lord, then when the time comes for us to go, we'll be thinking about the Lord, and devotees will help us by chanting the Lord's name. Then we can go back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful class, and really stressing the point on really focusing on the Lord, chanting, attentive chanting, and meditating on the Lord. That's one of the paragraphs Srila Prabhupada mentioned, how it's clearly stated that we should be meditating on the Lord and using our time. And I see that he mentions the word time quite a bit, like here and there, how we should really use our time wisely. Would like to ask devotees if you have any questions, any comments on this amazing class. And we're coming towards the end of, this chapter about Bhishma Dev's fasting. So it's really a very meditative prayers of Bhishma Dev that we can all meditate in our daily lives. So if you have any questions, any comments, any reflections, please do either jump right in, or you can raise your hand And while the devotees are thinking, I have a question that you mentioned, and I wanted, and as you were speaking,
Mhm.
and you're talking about the world is not getting better. We just know that. I mean, we have enough examples, and I think it's also Krishna's mercy that when we get comfortable, then something happens to wake us up. That is not our home. How
Yeah.
can we really? Yeah, it's like all around us. We don't even have to turn the TV on. We can just see it out of the window like it is right there. And how can we really realize, the importance that we really need to take our spiritual life seriously, because this is not our home. Because
How
there's so
can
many, yeah,
how can we realize that?
yeah. How can we really see it? Because it's like we hear it a million times, we've been told a million times, and still we said, and we just slack back, But how can we really? I think my question is, how can we develop the understanding
Mhm.
develop the understanding of the seriousness of Krishna consciousness, that this is not our home. Make the best of it, but it's not our home.
It's not too hard. All you have to do is look around, and the four difficult things that we have to go through, two of them are very obvious, and one of them comes later on. Old age and disease. Very obvious. Who wants to live in a place knowing that there could be other places where there's no old age and there's no disease? Who wants to keep being at a place that old age, you say, oh, well, maybe I'm not old. Well, look around at the older people. Look how they manage their lives. Is it easy? Even walking is a challenge for them. Even just walking. Some people, talking is a challenge for them. Some people, even having a good posture of sitting up straight is a challenge for them because the bodies are breaking down. Now, if you're not old, then the reality will hit you that a few decades, you'd be in that position. And if they are struggling, the older people now are struggling, and worse, you go to the old folks' homes, you see the bodies deteriorated even more. We tend not to see that so much. People who work there, they know that all the time. And people who are incontinent, they have to be helped in the bathroom. They have so many things. So old age alone is a great hassle. Then the one we're all familiar with, disease. Disease in individual homes, and then there are international diseases, we call them pandemics. That also happens here. Now we're wearing masks, and so for the last 2 years we've been wearing masks. So that's a hassle. Those of us as devotees in the temple, you go to the temple in 2019, you could, when kirtan is going on and the person that's singing in the mic sings, after they sing and we're backing them up, you can hear ourselves just as loud as the person who was singing in the microphone. But now we have these mufflers on in our mouths, and with more people backing up, but you can't even hear the sound, the sound as much as we used to hear. Because there's a disease, and the reaction to a disease has changed our lives like that. So we try to tolerate, but we need to understand that tolerance is only for us to be here for a while. You don't have to tolerate in the spiritual world. It is blissful the whole time. So these are things that should go on in the mind. Says we have a better place, and this is a place of hassle, place of suffering. We have tried to come here thinking that we'll be controllers, but actually the material energy is giving us all kinds of problems, and therefore what Guru is telling us to do, go back to Godhead, will ultimately be the best thing for us. When we understand it that way, then we know that the process to go, the hearing and the chanting and the serving have to be taken very seriously, more than anything else. This material world will not give us the happiness that we want. It's in Srimad Bhagavatam, Many places, especially the 11th canto, and I'll say that's an example, one of the 9 Yogendras, Nava-Yogendras, Prabodha, was explaining that he says, and this reminds me because of the question that you asked. Many people have almost gotten themselves to thinking that life is okay here. You just try to make it the best you can. But he says, Maharaj Nimi, he was talking to King Nimi. Maharaj Nimi, people don't understand that there's no happiness here. All there is suffering. Material happiness is suffering disguised as something that will make us happy. But it doesn't. It really doesn't. Oh, people drink as, oh, they're happy because they're drinking. At the time, they're uninhibited. But then the liver is falling apart. The body is falling apart. So if you drink something to make your body suffer, is that enjoyment? But people have taken it that it's enjoyment. So even the things that we do, so much hurt. There's a great game people play. It's called football, American football. And they put pads and stuff and they're banging each other. And then the people get carried off the field because they bang their knees, they bang that. But then the spectators say, we're watching a game. I used to watch football. Now I'm looking at it and I say, but it's a game people hurt themselves. Boxing is a game people hurt themselves. But it's all supposed to be, spectators think this is wonderful. No, it's actually a suffering condition for those who are playing. It is a suffering condition for those who are playing. So it's just what we call happiness. We have it upside down. When you think about all of these, then you realize we are fortunate to have the solution, which is chant, hear, serve, associate with devotees, be kind to everybody, and earn the mercy of Krishna that way, so you can leave and go to the place outside this reformatory, the spiritual world. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. We just gotta just look outside, and what's coming to my mind right now is just you were saying that is one of the prayers to the spiritual master. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. It's really taking the shelter of devotees and spiritual master to help us see that we are living in a world that is not our home, and we make the best of it, but we don't get attached to it. And how do we get out of it? Only by the mercy. Thank you so much for bringing this point up. Any other questions? Any other comments? Any thoughts, reflections on this amazing class? It's just really wonderful to hear and learn and study the prayers of Bhishma Dev. Really, really is. If there isn't, I want to thank you all for joining us. And a quick reminder, tonight is our Bhagavad Gita circle at 6 p.m. Please do join us 5 minutes before 6 so that we do not miss any of the readings. And tomorrow morning, the class will be 1 hour earlier because it will be given by His Holiness Chandramali Swami, who is in Slovenia right now. So we adjust with his time only when he gets class. So tomorrow morning is at 7 o'clock. Same login information. And tonight is the Bhagavad Gita circle at 6 p.m. Until then, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day, devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.